Hey everyone, checking in on the market, dealing with a whole bunch of technical difficulties, but sorting it out one by one. I've been making afternoon videos for almost 3 hours at this point, which is a bit absurd as it normally takes about an hour, but I'm doing a whole bunch of wrong things. So we'll start it off with SPY. When's the last time we saw 2 gap downs in a row followed by 2 gap ups in a row? I don't have that answer, but I'd be curious to know when the last time it was, because I'm sure that's not often at all. It is a complete 180 turnaround. And we are still watching for the same setup. I think, the most likely scenario is a 4-hour equilibrium. So to see that 4-hour equilibrium, we are going to have to see a pullback and a lower high set on the 4-hour time frame. You can see every candlestick on the 4-hour time frame, including extended hours on the way up, was a higher low. This long lower wick here is just one of those fluke trades that occurs during extended hours or during pre-market. But it's higher lows every single candlestick, and now we're leveling out a little bit, and it looks like we might reject from 280 psychological resistance and pull back to form the 4-hour higher low. And again, just like we saw on the daily time frame, this bounce response tells us the bulls are very strong in this market still. That was significant dip buying. But how much we pull back here is going to be indicative of what the most likely scenario. In my opinion, I think the pullback is going to be fairly contained, and I think the bulls are going to do battle with 280 again in the near future. So we're going to watch how aggressive is this dip bought, because we certainly saw a very aggressive buying of the dip the last time around. If we do not get this consolidation and the bulls head right up to 281.87, buying that bull break would not be ideal in my opinion, because we're too extended, and I would need that higher low to be comfortable in at least temporary pullback. Even on some of the, the hourly and the 4-hour time frames would do it. So I'm looking for a higher low and higher high pattern here on SPY. But again, the size of that pullback on the 4-hour will be telling over the next couple of days. So with that, we got IWM with its bounce on the daily time frame. Bear with me as TradingView has been pretty slow the past couple of days. But we're looking at the lower high set here. And again, the size of the bounce, we have SPY just a couple dollars away from continuation. And here we have IWM not even really getting halfway from the pullback here. So a much different bounce. The odds of a lower high and lower low are much more likely on IWM than they are on SPY or QQQ or most of what else we're going to look at, because the bounces were much more significant. So looking at the shift in momentum on IWM, the hourly time frame, looking at extended hours as well. Again, we might lose support here. If we break 153.80 tomorrow, then that consolidation will be underway, and it will still be a tightening 4-hour pattern, but it's a lot more in limbo. If this were the only chart I was looking at, it would be a lot more in limbo in terms of which direction the equilibrium, the likely equilibrium, will break. Again, the other names have bull favor because of the size of the bounce that we've seen. QQQ broke to a higher high already. So again, we can take these individual breaks as clues, and they shift the odds. If this is just an example, but if the odds of a SPY bull break were 65%, and then we see QQQ break its resistance level, maybe that shifts us up to 75% that SPY is going to get that bull break. Keeping in mind that IWM blew through its weekly resistances on the way up, and then SPY and QQQ followed along and slowly made their way up to battle those resistance levels of their own. So QQQ on the consolidation, pretty limited. It looks almost like a bull flag because the hourly little lower high and lower low hasn't even happened yet. If it happens tomorrow, 174.72 will be a key support for me, because if we take both of those hourly support levels out, there's a lack of support below it, and that would show a decent amount of short-term strength by the bears if those levels could get taken out. Otherwise, the bulls from here, again, we already broke resistance, so zooming out to the weekly time frame to find the next level, we're right up here at this level of 175.58, and we've been playing around there. We did break above it, but clearly still seeing some resistance, and then 178.26 would be the next level we look from there. XLF had a weaker bounce as well, similar to IWM, and IWM, I believe the biggest sector holdings in IWM is the financial sector. It's pretty balanced overall, but it is one of the highest. So again, the daily lower high certainly looks like we're going to form. The question is, has it formed already? And we're just straight across right now. So we're going to get some information tomorrow in terms of whether we break the high or whether we break these supports, because today certainly didn't give us much information. Held on compared to the consolidation from yesterday, but as far as today's trading, not a whole lot went on. XBI on the daily time frame has seen a more significant bounce, so it's in line with the other names, the stronger names. still likely to see this daily lower high set and then consolidation. And if we look at it on the 4-hour time frame, it's just a more drawn out version, but a little bit toppy. The hourly time frame starting to consolidate, but at this point, it's an extremely bullish chart, and we haven't lost the uptrend, and it is still all bulls on XBI. So some of these other names were close to losing their hourly uptrend. Not the case for XBI at this point. We did end with a sell-off in the markets at the end of the day, but also a decent bounce at the end of the day as well. So it's going to be very telling tomorrow whether that lower high has been set in these names or not. VIX pulling right back down to the double bottom at 1340. That's the next level to be looking at. We have a clear hourly downtrend, the entire multiple day pullback. 1470, it's showing it's a clear level to watch. And we are just seeing confidence in the markets, essentially, is what it boils down to. So not a whole lot for the volatility sector to go up about, really. So oil has been standing out for its dip, break of supports, instant long lower wick, and then break of resistance and continuation. A complete turnaround. And this is the scenario. This would, be something that you put in a textbook for technical analysis to a fake out and a complete reversal. And looking at it for signals in terms of what was the signal that we ended up getting, that strong of a bounce. And really, it was nothing that clearly stood out to me. Obviously, the V-shaped recovery that we saw here, but even then, we would anticipate a lower high is going to form. The fact that we just saw this continuation the whole way up is very meaningful on that recovery. So just a complete absolute fake out. And all you can do if you get faked out in that scenario is exit your trade. So if you're, in on that bear break and you're in bearish and you start to see this bounce take place, you got to have a stop loss in place and get triggered out before, you're stuck in a position and dumbfounded as to what to do because, you didn't bail on that position, didn't have a stop loss set, essentially. Another example of that today would be BA, just on the 2-minute time frame, was watching it for potential day trading, but I didn't end up doing much trading at all. But BA had a clear bull break on the 2-minute time frame, and it did not get any follow through. And I'm just trying to pick out right now where that was on the 2-minute. But it was an extremely clear, tight pattern on the 2-minute of an equilibrium, just patiently watching. This was a very clear rejection of 375. We rejected from 375 maybe 4 different times. It was almost like there was hidden resistance there because there would be enough volume and enough hitting that resistance that you anticipate we would go through it, but didn't reject from it. Or we did reject from it, didn't get through it. So we rejected, that's our lower high, held support, significant buying showed up right at that level, almost a double bottom. Another lower high, here's our pullback, we're getting really tight. The bull break was right here at 374.73 because that's every little lower high seeing a break of resistance. And we hit the next level of 375 and then completely turned around and dumped on increasing bear volume and breaking all the support levels. So that is a complete fake out, and fake outs happen. And we have to be able to be comfortable bailing on positions and knowing when we're wrong to be able to act on those positions and not be, fearful that it's not going to work out. Because if the worst case scenario is a small loss and you're wrong and you go on to the next trade, it's way easier to be, to not be scared than if you're getting in scenarios where you're trying to enter a trade and next thing you know, you're down, 3% of your account. So here we had a break of one resistance level, but we could not break the level behind it. So on equilibriums, you want to ensure that you're breaking multiple resistance levels on high volume. If volume's missing, it's a red flag. If you're not breaking multiple levels, it's a red flag as well. That's why I like the tighter the equilibriums, the better, because the odds that we break multiple levels on the breaks are higher than if there's a lot of space in between and we get a break, but we don't break the level behind it because that level behind it, percentage-wise, was a greater distance away. So that's how you look at equilibrium, some tips on that. But oil strong is the bottom line, and we're going to go with natural gas now. Trying to bounce a little bit. This is a shift in momentum, clearly back from Monday. Sunday night into Monday, we pulled back significantly enough that this bounce attempt right now, if we look at this on the 4-hour time frame, the bulls have a long way to go to get back to where we were. So we would have to see multiple days of higher lows and higher highs, probably have to see a bullish reaction to the inventory report coming up to even get back up to the 280s. So still being cautious because this is weekly consolidation underway now. The weekly lower high has been set and now we're pulling back and looking for the higher low. And it could be a scenario on the weekly chart where we do see quick, brief consolidation like SPY just showed us. But obviously it's a very different chart than SPY. Natural gas is extremely weak here. SPY is extremely strong on the weekly time frame. So apples to oranges to a certain degree. So that's where we stand as we head into tomorrow. I will be watching for a pullback. Obviously, the open is going to be telling in terms of which directions we're looking at. But if we break the lows of today, clearly consolidation is underway, and the 4-hour time frames are going to give us those tightening patterns. And that will probably play out into the end of the week, with potentially Friday, quad witching being a day to be watching for. So hope you had a good day. I'm looking forward to getting back in my groove in terms of comfortability. Got the internet wire on the pole fixed and slowly getting there. See you tomorrow. I think we're on story time, chapter 7. And now we are leaving the place that I'm going to go back to house sit. But in the meantime, I got a couple weeks where I'm going to explore Colorado. First things first, heading through Rocky Mountain National Park. So just a bunch of exploring around every day, just an adventure to hike and camp and look at new things. And I was planning on going westward and then wrapping my way around through Telluride and then swinging back down to the south through Durango and Mesa Verde National Park. So this is up on Rocky Mountain National Park. And some of the roads, the elevation that they get up to and the mountains and the passes that they go through are pretty incredible. If you've never been in big mountains, if you've only been on the East Coast, here in North Carolina, 4,000 feet is a big mountain. And over there, you're looking at 13,000 plus feet. And you can be driving up over, 10,000, 11,000 feet. Very significant. So nice wildflowers. When you're there in June and July, wildflowers can be popping off. And I was really taken aback and surprised by how many wildflowers there are in some of these fields. And of course, this cell phone picture doesn't do justice for the colors, but this was a nice lake. And again, all these lakes are pretty cool colors because a lot of them have runoff from these mountains and a bunch of minerals. And again, the water's freezing, but cool places to camp around. And in this particular instance, someone got lost up here. So I say how normally it's very quiet at about 5 p.m., but on this day, I don't know how you get lost. It wasn't like a kid got lost. A grown man got lost from around this lake. This is the destination where the trail leads up to. Anyway, so he was lost, and he got far enough away that, we're screaming at the top of our lungs, and we can only hear the tiny, faintest yell in the distance. So we know he's somewhere out there. We know it's getting dark, and he might have to sleep outside. So fortunately, that didn't happen. And he stumbled his way. From the last people that came up onto the trail, they said, yeah, some guy stumbled his way out and was asking if he was on the right trail and was heading back down. So that was nice. I think he climbed his way up to a better perspective to try and see where he was at. Don't get lost, because even the most well-marked trails and well-marked landmarks, you can still get lost, I guess. So next I went to, this is up near Aspen, Conundrum Hot Springs. This is definitely one of the highlights of the trip and my favorite hot springs out of, 15 plus that I've been in. My favorite by far. It's an 8-mile hike to get up to it on some pretty steep elevation. So it's a whole day's journey, and that keeps out, that's almost like a selective barrier that the people are going to make it up there are people that really want to be there, not the kind of people that just pull off the road and, hop onto a waterfall for 10 minutes. So hiked my way up. And this is a view from the top. The tents and the camping area is behind us up on the hill. And there's the view of the valley. And this is the hot springs. And we're back to getting naked in the stories because that's the only way to get into a hot spring. So it was just a lot of fun. And it was a completely different contrast in terms of the kind of people that were there. Because I went up there on a weekday and I was only planning on going for 2 nights. And I got up there and said, this is the coolest place. I need to stay here. So I started rationing my food and trying to stay as long as possible. And it was the kind of thing where I went up on the weekday. So I was there maybe Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. I ended up stretching it to 4 nights. And the first few nights, it was very calm, very laid back. The people that were there were some really cool people, had some great conversations in there, talking about lucid dreaming. That's where I was talking about lucid dreaming with a young woman. And then she came back the next day and said that she had her first one after our conversation. And just very mellow and low key. And then there was a point in time where I was just sitting up there in this bigger pool by myself at maybe 4 o'clock, and I was naked, and one by one groups just started coming up, and they all started coming at the same time. And it's younger college kids, and they got the boombox, and they got a pool volleyball, a blow up ball, and we're passing around bottles of rum, and I got some moonshine that my buddy made, and everybody's trading things. And so it gets to the point where everybody's just hopping in, and everybody is wearing bathing suits, because you kind of get the feel, if there's a few naked people, everybody's more comfortable getting naked. If everybody's wearing their bathing suit, everybody stays wearing their bathing suit. So I was already in the water naked. Literally 20, 25 more people are in here with me, to the point where, everybody's sitting in a circle and there's not really a whole lot of space. I'm the only naked person in that hot spring. It was just a really funny scenario because no one knew it until I got out, and I'm just this naked dude who's been in there the whole time. So that was funny, but it was a fun contrast because, again, like I said, I wasn't really interacting with people much on this trip other than passing conversations, and it was really nice to be hanging out with people my age, and definitely a bit of a party up there on the weekend nights, and that was fun. Ended up eating glacier lilies to try and ration my food and make it last longer. So these are edible and pretty darn good, actually. So I was going around and eating a bunch of those, and I would ration my rice. And I made the mistake of bringing rice, but not bringing anything but brown rice. And when you eat brown rice every single day, it gets really, really boring. I didn't bring anything to spice it up. So there were some other hikers there who had some soy sauce, and they left soy sauce with me. And that was like a gift that completely changed everything, because brown rice day after day was getting very old. There was also an older guy up there, and he lives, you could call him homeless, but he chose to live in these national areas, and they have rules where you can only stay in certain areas 6 months of the year. So you would have 2 camps, and he'd go 6 months to 6 months and just back and forth. And he would pretty much live up here at the hot spring, and he's been going for decades. And if anybody's been to this hot spring, there's a decent chance that you saw him. But he was just very knowledgeable on the area, and he had all these great stories. They were talking about how they brought a squash one time and put the squash under some rocks at the bottom of the hot spring, and a couple days later it was cooked, and they took it out and ate it. He also had some stories. Well, he had a lot of stories. That was a very interesting individual, someone that knowingly chooses to live on the land like that. And this man, the size of the pack, he was just this, frail little guy, but the size of the pack and the weight that he was carrying was putting me to shame. So it was extremely impressive how he was physically capable. And again, he's just been doing it for decades. So that's that. Go to Conundrum Hot Springs, Colorado, near Aspen. Definitely worth a hike up, although they could at this point. There were some issues where they were thinking about closing it and blah, 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 and the park services and all that. So double check and make sure it's still up. Hope you have a good day.